Okay, welcome everybody to the Thursday evening Dhamma session. So last week, somebody made a suggestion, and what they wanted me to speak was how to practice Satipatthana in daily life. However, I proposed the topic as can we practice Satipatthana in daily life? So this was last week's Dhamma talk. I'm just recapitulating because we are going to continue on from where we left off last week. And there I started reading the Satipatthana Sutta, which is from the Middle Length Discourses, Sutta number 10. And there is clear instructions from the Buddha, the prerequisites, how to prepare yourself, how to prepare your mind in order to do the Satipatthana practice. He even recommends which kind of location to go to, what kind of place is suitable to do this practice, and even suggest what kind of posture is helpful. Not that you have to be really cross-legged and sitting, that's how they sat in India, but it is recommending that it is a form of sitting meditation done at a quiet place, like in a forest or at the foot of a tree, or in an empty hut, meaning in a quiet, secluded place. And also there was the mentioning of Atapi, Sampajano, Satima, Vinaya Loke, Abhijado Manasa. So in there are a few things that came up saying that you establish that mindfulness, yeah, Sati and Sampajanya. I might speak a bit more about Sampajanya. That is mindfulness and clear awareness. So not just being aware, but also knowing what you're aware, how you're aware, and why, and all of these things. Also with a mind that has energy, atapi, yeah, energy to burn off or purify the defilements. And also having, dealt with the very strong forms of desire and covetousness and down states of mind. Domanassa is like depressions, resentments, negative mind states, all of those things, having removed a large part of that very gross defilements. And then you go and sit in a quiet place, and then you establish your mindfulness in front. That means you're just being here, now, not thinking, but aware. And then you're supposed to be starting this practice. And also mentioned that in the Satipatthana Sutta and in other places, whenever the Buddha mentions what right mindfulness is, and that is the seventh factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, it's always mentioned that practicing the four Satipatthanas is called the right mindfulness. And this is a bit different to how we know and practice mindfulness in the world, right? Mindfulness practices are common everywhere, but this is now focused on only one goal, and that is to be free from all suffering, to full awakening, to enlightenment, nibbana. So that's the only goal, and the mindfulness that we establish or how we look at things is to get to that goal. So not about mindfulness, about anything else. And there are four things that we are supposed to, the Buddha gives instructions in the Satipatthana Sutta, where you can establish mindfulness into aspects of your body, to feelings, to mind, and to mind objects. We also discussed briefly why are these important, because we mentioned in the last session that the body gets in the way, right? A lot of the attachment to our body and bodies of other people is what keeps us in the sensual world. And establishing right view, right understanding about what a body is so helpful to overcome this craving, this tanha, kama tanha. And we also mentioned last time we spoke about Vedana, feelings, and how we run after all the pleasure and run away from the pain, and how exhausted we get during our life, running back and forth like this between pain and pleasure. Yet we said that pain and pleasure only last as long as the contact is there. And the contact, that is that coming together of an experience of sight, of sound, of smell, taste, or touch, or even thinking. It's not maintained for hours and days and weeks and months. Yeah, it just only lasts for quite a short while. And when the attention is gone, that feeling is gone. But we have a very wrong understanding about these feelings, and that is where also we get stuck. So dhammanupassana, contemplation on feeling, is of great help to us. And today we are going to talk about mind and mind objects. Another very, very profound and important practice. So I'm going to read out from the sutta and then we'll discuss it. So here it goes. Katancha bhikkave bhikkhu chitte cittanupassi viharati. And how, monks, does a monk dwell contemplating the nature of the mind? Idha bhikkave bhikkhu saragam va chittam saragam chittanti vajanati. Here, monks, a monk, when a mind has passion, knows the mind has passion. So saraga, so raga is that lust, desire, craving, or wanting. But you will see as we move forward in this one, this is not referring to the very strong forms of lust, because we said already, Vinaya loke abhijja domanasang. So abhijja is that covetousness, that hoarding of things, that strong forms of wanting and greed. But here it is much more subtle forms, because here now you're already having a bright mind, having a mind that has, some mindfulness established. And yet these things have many layers to it. And sometimes it's hard to see. But as you sit, become still, become peaceful, then you get to actually see deeper forms of raga, deeper forms, very ingrained forms of passion that is inside. Then you understand, yes, this is now present in my mind. Vitaragan chittanti bhajanati. Or when a mind is without passion, he knows the mind is without passion, because it's not always there, right? There are times that our desires subside and something else is there. So technically becoming aware whether the 5 hindrances are present in the mind is what this first part of the cittanupassana is about. Let me first read and we'll get into more discussion or more explanation. Sadosang va chittang, sadosang chittanti bhajanati. Or when a mind has hate or ill will or negativity, he knows that the mind has ill will. Vita dosang chittanti bhajanati. When a mind is without hate or ill will, he also knows that the mind is without ill will. Again, here we are not talking about very strong and forms of anger and things like that. This is more like the more subtle aversions, annoyances, or dislike even, yeah, or small rejections, or that form of very subtle forms that are there still in the mind. These are the ones maybe that wake up and become into the bigger forms, but this is because we are doing it at a sitting meditation. So we also become aware of these very subtle forms which we never get to see otherwise. Samohang va chittang samohang chittanti pajanati. When the mind has delusion, he knows the mind has delusion. Vita mohang chittanti pajanati. So when the mind doesn't have delusion, he knows the mind doesn't have delusion. Now this is an important one, right? When we are deluded, as yet unenlightened, how to see delusion, isn't it? This is hard. But in a previous talk, when we were talking about dhammanupassana, yeah, we said that, the neutral feelings, the delusion underlies, yeah, the latent tendency to delusion underlies the neutral feelings. So when the mind is pretty neutral and things, then we can also know that still delusion is there, yeah, because we still have a sense of me, yeah, sense of self. And but as we meditate deeply, we are going to understand this and see more forms of this. And that's the whole point, because we know very little about our minds. We only know the very gross forms of these things, when the sensuality, lust is in our mind, or anger, ill will, negativity is in our mind. We know these very well. But there are also very subtle forms that are there. And it is important that we see those as well, so that we can hopefully understand them, let them go, and transcend them. Sankittang va chittang, sankittang chittanti pajanati. When the mind is collected, he knows the mind is collected. Vikittang chittanti pajanati. So sankittang means when the mind is has a bit more focus, it's not all over the place. It's able to stay with the meditation object, like the breath or any other contemplation that or reflection you are doing. It is able to stay with the object. It is collected, it is focused. But vikittang means it's scattered. It's like the restlessness and remorse or worry, that kind of the mind all over the place, running into future, running into past, or the subtle forms of the movements of the mind. So even when there is a little bit of discontent, yeah, small bit of discontent, discomfort, even when you want things to be slightly otherwise, you can see the mind moving. So it's not focused. So that's for the first, was it 4 or 8 things? The first half talks about more the unwholesome mind states and having awareness into these mind states. And then comes quite profound mind states, because this too is important, because most of us are quite familiar with these unwholesome mind states. However, unless we get into deep meditation and again we have got into real forms of samadhi, we are not that familiar how to understand these things, right? Because they are quite out of this world states. That's why they are called uttari manusa dhamma, yeah? They are quite profound mind states. And some people get blown away when they experience them for the first time. But some people misunderstand when they get a little bit of peace, when they're able to sit for a couple of hours. They think maybe they have got into a jhana, when clearly the mind has probably been in another trap of peace and cool, but not a very heightened, awakened state of jhana. So therefore it is important to get to know these high mind states and understand them as well. So mahaggatang chittanti pajanati. when the mind has become very great, he knows the mind has become great. Amahagatang chittang wa amahagatang chittanti pajanati. When the mind has not become great, he knows the mind has not become great. So usually this kind of mahagatang chittang is coming into place when we do the Brahma Vihara meditations like Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upeka. So that is loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are kind of, because you do and you spread these kinds of beautiful mind states of love, affection, kindness, rejoicing, and equanimity to all beings in the whole world, everywhere, in all realms of existence. So that is why these kinds of states can make your mind quite large, expansive, into that kind of state. So you understand what the mind is like. Sauttarang chittang va sauttarang chittanti pajanati. Anuttarang va chittang anuttarang chittanti pajanati. So sauttarang means when a mind is surpassable, he knows the mind is surpassable. When the mind is unsurpassable, he knows the mind is unsurpassable. So these are not extremely clear exactly what these states mean, but they are definitely like jhana states or above, states where there are no hindrances present. Yeah. So at least they are temporarily down. So this is when the mind is quite strong, quite solid, lots of mindfulness and lots of energy, and highly energized, highly awakened mind states. Yeah. So they are usually, Ajahn Brahm says, a jhana, when you experience a jhana, it's like a positive trauma. He puts, it's the wrong word, the trauma, but just to show like a trauma is something that's quite significant, right? You don't have to ask somebody, did I have a trauma? You know you had a trauma because it was quite, unforgettable. You never forget that. It was quite powerful, but in a negative way. But a jhana state is a positive one. It's very unforgettable as well. And you don't have to actually ask anybody whether you had it, because you know it was so profound and so special, and that's something that is out of the ordinary mind state. Okay, so that's the thing. And then samahitang chittang va samahitang chittanti pajanati. When a mind is concentrated, he knows the mind is concentrated. Asamahitang chittang asamahitang chittanti pajanati. So when the mind is not concentrated, he knows the mind is not concentrated. Here again, that is talking about the stillness of the mind. Yeah, any kind of level where the mind is getting into maybe the nimitta stages or into the jhanas or post jhana, wherever, when the mind is very like one-pointed and become established and with heightened mindfulness, and without moving really at that time, especially when you are inside of a jhana, the mind does not move. Yeah, it is very established, but it is not like fast asleep. It's actually very awake and very alert, fully alert, in fact, highly alert. And when the mind is not like that, then they also know that it is not that state. I'll come back to that after I finish the last one. Vimuttang va chittang, vimuttang chittanti pajanati, avimuttang va chittang, avimuttang chittanti pajanati. When a mind is liberated, he knows the mind is liberated. When a mind is not liberated, he knows the mind is not liberated. So that is also like when somebody attains either full enlightenment or stages of enlightenment, they have no doubt about it. You don't have to go and ask somebody else, am I a stream winner now? Or am I an arahant now? You know, it's your own knowledge. You know your mind is now free and given up completely the defilements. There's nothing there. Greed, hatred, and delusion have been transcended completely. Vimuttang chittang. So the mind has been liberated from craving. Yeah, that is understood. But there are different stages of vimuttang as well. So when the mind is liberated from the sensual world, yeah, that is when it enters the jhana state. That is also a form of ceto vimutti. Yeah, so then that too you understand. That happens when you've been building up also these what is called sabbaloke anabhirata sanya, non-delight, the perceptions that are like non-delighting in the whole sensual world or whole world. And when those perceptions really take up power and when your mind becomes very still, that also has the ability to bring up nibbida. Yeah. Or when your mind is really focused or still, you start to see things for what they are. Again, nibbida comes. And when that disenchantment or nibbida, the Pali word for disenchantment happens, the mind turns away, yeah, from the sensual world or from whichever type of perception you've been developing, and the mind is released again. So that is that it is quite a sharp moment of understanding when the mind releases. It is a felt strong experience of mind being released either temporarily from craving or completely from craving. Permanently from craving is arahant. But any stage that is falls short, then it could be a state of enlightenment or just entering jhanas. So it's a really interesting. So again, so cittanupassana is not something that you do when you're going about in your day, right? Not something that you do. There is some awareness that we can talk about what you can do during your day, but to understand what cittanupassana, as the Buddha describes it, is a powerful state. And now, why is this important? Yeah. Why is this important? Because the mind, we know very little about. We know so much about everything else. Even the science, doesn't understand too much about science, mind. They know so much about the brain. Yeah, but they don't know very much about the mind. Very few people know the workings of the mind, the perceptions of the mind, what states of mind are there. Yet, if you are intent on awakening, yeah, intent on overcoming all of this suffering, it is important because it is the mind that gets enlightened, right? Gets liberated from suffering, not the body. This body will end at the end of this life. But the mind, the stream of consciousness is what goes on and on and on, unless all of that craving has come to an end. So therefore, it is important to become familiar and get to know your mind, the various states of your mind. Now I'm going to give some very practical advice that is also helpful related to meditation. And I have done this myself, which is why this I know really well. In my early days of meditation, for many years, I used to meditate like that and thought that I was getting really good meditation. This was while I was a lay person in my busy days, when I'm able to, sit quietly, and when the mind becomes peaceful and it becomes cool, it's quite profound, because compared to the mind running here and there, running, chasing after all kinds of things, being exhausted, suddenly when it becomes quite still, it's quite nice, quite profound. And you can also stay in that stillness for many hours sometimes. Yet there's a different states. And there's one state where you feel really peaceful, and people say it's sukha, but it's not the real sukha that we talk about in the meditation psychology. But this is also still a very nice, cool state that we experience. However, we get to that state without experiencing joy, piti. So this is a very important thing to understand. So be having awareness about your mind, whether the mind is getting into, first of all, gladness. What is it like to be having a glad mind? What is it like to have piti, that is joy or rapture? And then becoming sukha. and how you become into very cool place without going through that proper sequence. And this is where you see many meditators sometimes spend hours, days, and some people have meditated like this for decades, unfortunately, without having awareness that at that state, that cool state, the mindfulness is a bit quite low. Yeah, even though you're very, very peaceful, it's very cool, it's very nice. And when you come out of that meditation, the body and mind feel rested, especially in a normal, busy life. This is great. And I'm not saying not to do that, but that's not the end of it. That's the only way you meditate, you will be not heading in the right direction, because the meditation, as you become still, the awareness should get sharper, your mindfulness become stronger, you feel you're very awake. So if it was a proper still state of sukha, when you come out, you can't go to sleep again. Yeah, you're very aware, very alert. Mind has incredible energy. Whereas the other way of practicing meditation, it becomes so cool after that, you just fall asleep very easily. And you can see also, you know that you are not awake, you're not sleeping, but you are also barely aware, barely awake. So I'm sure some of you will relate to, and I'm sure every one of us who's tried to meditate have experienced these states, and it's okay. That's a place where you rest and overcome the tiredness and sickness of the body. But what I'm trying to say is, know these states and don't misidentify them. Yeah, this is the whole point. The whole point is to understand, okay, this is that kind of state where mind is really recovering from all that tiredness, running around, even the body is recovering, and that's all right. And of course, in day-to-day practice, most of the time, that's all most of us may get to, and that's fine as well. But when you have that time to go on a longer retreat, meditation retreat, then after 3 or 4 days at least, this kind of state should settle. But by habit, the mind might just stay there because it is quite nice. You can just indulge in that low level of coolness, but not to misunderstand that that's a deep state of meditation, but to see that from there onwards, you need to take a slightly different path of, again, becoming more aware of your meditation object. Or even, because it is more of a sloth and torporish state, change your meditation object and bring up a meditation object that inspires your heart, that brings up energy to your mind. So you can have a kickstart now that the mind and body has rested. And then based on that, you can again start building up that awareness, mindfulness, and energy of the mind. So all of these come from trial and error, but having that awareness, inquisitive mind to know how the mind is working, what kind of state is it? Is it in a state of awakening into insights, or is it kind of falling asleep, or in between some cool state? Am I trapped in a state that is much lower but feels nice? Yeah, because if we want to really bring up that full awakened mind, we have to understand these different states. So that is why. So even that could even be one of those samohang chittang, yeah, a mind which is having delusion, yeah, which is cool but not waking up. And another thing that I can mention, that we talked about this in the last Sunday Sutta class as well, Ujju and Suujju, that is a mind that is straight. Yeah, and this is very important to know as well. So when you're meditating, when the mind is bent or warped, yeah, so that is like that depressed kind of mind, the mind that is down, the mind that doesn't have energy. It's a bit dark, or it's a bit kind of foggy, and that's not a straight mind. It's the opposite of Ujju, which is called Jimha. But a mind that is straight, it is uplifted. Yeah, it has energy. It is bright. So to be able to understand the differences between these, when the mind is starting to become bright, how do you make your mind more straight? Because you need a straight mind, a bright mind, a mind that has pamoja, an uplift to even start meditating. Yeah. So again, the Buddha mentions ways of doing this and reflections, anusati bhavanas, yeah, reflections on the qualities of the Buddha, the teachings, the enlightened disciples, your own goodness, that is your own generosity, that is chaga, your own virtue, all of these things. So many things can be used to uplift the mind and straighten your mind. Yeah, and it is important to understand. So this is where it is important. So when instead of saying that you are going to do awareness of the mind, cittanupassana, while you're cooking or driving or doing all these other things in your day-to-day life, instead, when you sit to meditate, that is the time that you can actually reflect and see what's my mind like, what does it have at the moment. So this is helpful. And as you're meditating, this data will come in. And after the meditation, especially after deep meditation, then you do the paccavakkana, which is reflecting back. Especially when you have sharp mindfulness, then it is easy for the mind to recollect what happened. So these are the times that you actually, during recollection, reflecting back into your meditation is when you see, the subtle defilements that were there and how they were overcome, and you understand a lot more about the workings of your mind. So to know that also cittanupassana is much more powerful also when it is done post jhana, right? So before meditation and after meditation, to understand and learn, yeah, because this is important for you. Otherwise, we can get misled into all sorts of traps. Yeah, in the mind, there are many places the mind can go, and people, when they don't deal with their mind in the right way, yeah, mental illnesses can also come about for people who are more prone to that. And we don't know sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we don't know what lies latent in our minds and what can come up. And sometimes people could have hallucinations or, all these kinds of stuff based on a mental health illness, and they might misunderstand and think that it is a psychic power or some kind of a result from a good meditation. So this is why it is really important to understand the really special, pure, powerful mind states and all these other states. And it takes time, because you can't go to a class and nobody else can show you, right? This state of mind that you are having right now, it's like this and that is like that. It's hard. So trial and error, yeah, and comparing and understanding, getting a feel for your mind to understand how the mind is developing is a very personal practice. Yeah, and you need to sort of gently guide yourself. And for me, my guiding principle is to see how I feel after the meditation. So if the meditation has gone in the right direction, after I end meditation, mind has incredible energy. Body has incredible energy. It's very peaceful. It's very still. And the hindrances are gone for a long time. But if you have misidentified the meditation to be something deep, then the hindrances, that is the sleepiness, the worry, the lust, the anger, they come back very quickly. If they come back very quickly, then you know that kind of mind doesn't matter what word you give it. That doesn't matter. They are just word concepts at the end of the day, but you know that's not the right kind of state. And then you sort of learn why and how, and all of that comes up in the next section. So again, in each section of the Satipatthana Sutta also has the refrain part, which is that iti ajjattang va chitte cittanupassī viharati, bahiddang va chitte cittanupassī viharati. Ajjattang bahidda va chitte cittanupassī viharati. So thus he dwells contemplating mind in regard to oneself and to others and to both. That's a summary of that phrase. So how do you do that, right? It's interesting because unless you have the psychic ability of Parachitta Vijnana Jnana, that is the ability to read another person's mind, you wonder, how are you going to know? But by body language, you can tell, isn't it? Some of these states, like when somebody has these different states, you can see, even in a meditator, you can see that whether they have been in that kind of very cool, still place, which is not a deep state, but a more of a trap, or whether somebody is annoyed, somebody is having desire. So again, you can see these things by learning to become more aware and sensitive about other persons. And the point is, the next step, that you also know, that it is not just you, right? This is mind, it's just a mind, whether it's my mind, your mind, or anybody else's mind. Mind is a mind, and it has just its normal ways of behaving. And my anger is not different to your anger or to anybody else's. My desires are not different. Even my deep meditative states, also when somebody else gets it, it's the same. It's like that. So it's just mind, not to be taken as mind or anybody else's. It's just born from causes and conditions. And samudaya dhammanupassīva cittasmiṃ viharati, vaya dhammanupassīva cittasmiṃ viharati. So that you also understand the beginning or arising of these mind states, and also when they have passed away. So this is also interesting, like we said last time, with the feelings also, we only always notice when the time of arising, a good feeling or bad feeling. When you're happy also, you notice it when it starts. When you have pain or sadness or whatever, you also see it at the time when it comes, but you never see when it finishes, because you are on to the next thing. But it is very helpful to understand the arising but also the passing away of all of these mind states. So you have a good understanding. Mind moves and changes so fast. Yeah. So, but a lot of the times we worry about mind states, right? Especially about the negative mind states. We are so very worried that, I am depressed, I am sad, I am grieving, I am worrying, I have anxiety, and it feels as if it's overwhelmed you and it's never going to go away. But if you really watch, there are many breaks. You can't be in one state constantly, because mind is only kept up as long as your mind contact is happening, as long as you're interested in that way of attending. And in a day, there are many distractions. Your mind goes into so many things. It's like a monkey, right? You call it the mind, the monkey mind. As it jumps from branch to branch, you experience different mind states. Yeah, so that is just outside. But of course, in meditation too, as your mind is settling down, it goes through all kinds of states. So you see how the mind contact keeps up the mind state. So this is where we understand even the deep meditative states, how they arise. They are still born of condition, like how they come about is how you give attention. There's a process, there's conditions, there are foundations to be put. So you understand how you allow them to come about. You put the right kind of causes for the right kind of mind states to come about. And when the causes fall apart, the mind states also comes to an end. So that's also why you can't stay in a jhana even for the rest of your life, right? So that is getting that understanding. And then atti chittantiva panassa sati Pachupattita hoti yavadeva jnanamattaya patisatimattaya anisitocha viharati nacha kinchi loki upadhyati evampi ko bhikkave bhikkhu chitte cittanupassi viharati. Or I was mindful that there is a mind established in him just as far as necessary for a full measure of knowledge and full measure of mindfulness, and he dwells independent and without being attached to anything in the world. In this way, a monk dwells contemplating the nature of the mind in the mind. And this is a very profound state, and this is usually like the mind state of an arahant, yeah? Anisito, not dependent, yeah? Not dependent, its mind is released. It's released from craving, yeah? It's not getting shaken by anything because the defilements are gone. And so we may not get in too much detail into that at this point of the discussion. We can come back into it if we want to go into deeper. It's quite a beautiful statement, and it's really beautiful to reflect even that idea of, you know, when the mind has attachments, when you have craving, how you are a slave to your craving, yeah? Just reflect even for a moment how that feels. When you're attached to something, when that thing shakes, you also shake because you're attached, isn't it? So this is when you feel like, you know, other people have control over your happiness and sadness. That's how it feels like when you have that kind of some form of attachment. But when those attachments are gone, when those desires, cravings, all has evaporated, then you are unshaken. It's a beautiful perception to develop, beautiful perception to know that you are independent of your happiness, isn't it? Because most of us are so dependent on other people and other things, the sensual world, for our happiness. But when we are able to learn how to become happy from within, from happiness born from hindrances coming down, defilements vanishing, and your mind becoming straight, powerful, and awake, it's another form of happiness. These are the states we call rapture or piti, sukha, or happiness of the mind. True pleasurable states, true states of pleasure. This kind of mind state, if somebody was to do a brain scan, the pleasure centers would light up. They are true states of pleasure. Yet they too are impermanent. That's another part coming up in the next section. Okay, I would just say this much for cittanupassana as a Satipatthana practice, but I will get back to more practical things, hopefully today, if not next time. Let's see. So, so then it comes to the dhammanupassana. So it goes like this. Katancha bhikkave bhikkhu dhammesu dhammanupassi viharati. Ida bhikkave bhikkhu dhammesu dhamma. Ida bhikkave bhikkhu dhammesu dhammanupassi viharati panchasu nivaranesu. So, and how monks does a monk dwell contemplating nature of things in various things? The monk dwells contemplating the nature of things in various things in the 5 hindrances. I'm not sure about this translation. That's probably not that great, but what in essence is that you become aware again about the 5 hindrances, right? But there's more to it that is different from cittanupassana, because in the cittanupassana also there were few, not all 5, but there were some indication to some of them. In fact, all 5 was there with different names. But in dhammanupassana, it goes further than just the awareness, just not only knowing that you have the raga or the dvesa or whatever form, but you also have more information. This is where it gets a bit exciting. So, katancha bhikkave bhikkhu dhammesu dhammanupassi viharati. And how monks does a monk dwell contemplating mind? In the 5 hindrances. Panchesu nivaranesu ida bhikkave bhikkhu santang va ajatang va kamachandang attime ajatang kamachandoti pajanati. So kamachanda, you know, sensual desire, desire for the sensual world. Kama means the sensual world, chanda means the desire. So when your mind has sensual desires, then you understand that the mind has sensual desires present. And I might not, because time is running, read all of the Pali, but this part I will say more in a practical way as well, is that when the mind doesn't have, you also know. But what is most important, what comes up later, is that you also understand what gave rise to that hindrance. The first hindrance is sensual desires. So how did the sensual desire come about? Then you also understand how did the sensual desire eventually go away? And then you also understand how do you need to practice in the future for the non-arising of that sensual desire. So for each of the 5 hindrances, 4 things are to be done. First of all, getting to know which hindrance is present in the mind. Then you understand what gave rise to that hindrance. Then you also look and see how that hindrance pass away. And how can you practice in the future by learning from this for it to not arise. So very, very interesting. Now, this can also be done in the day-to-day life too, to get to a level, whether we call it dhammanupassana, I don't think so, because this is now a much more profound state to really understand the very subtle forms, how they stay. And this is how you uproot some of these things. Yeah, the 5 hindrances, how are they uprooted? This is the teaching here. But nevertheless, we can use this kind of thing, practice outside, just to understand the working of, and it's extremely, extremely helpful in our day-to-day life too. Yeah. So in the day-to-day life, you can also see, sometimes you catch yourself with a certain strong feeling, a certain hindrance. It could be sensual desire, it could be ill will, it could be sloth and torpor, that is that lazy mind. It could be the restless and worrying mind, or the mind with doubt, or any other form of negative mind state. So then you can reflect back and see, now I was just driving peacefully, minding my own business. And maybe you catch sight of something. Maybe it's something that you really like and desire. And when you saw that, suddenly, maybe lust came up. Maybe it was like a billboard that you saw by the side of the highway as you were driving. Maybe it was like some food advertisement. And, suddenly you start to get hungry. You are not even hungry, but after seeing that picture, that image even, suddenly sensual desire come up in your mind, right? So you see, when you give attention and look into the beauty or the attraction, the features of those, that kind of a way, then desire comes up in your mind. And how does it go away? There are many ways it goes away. Often what happens is your mind gets hold of another one. It jumps into something else, another thing that gets your mind, and then this is left behind, and right into next thing. So next, you turn around a corner and you might see somebody really hurting somebody else, or like somebody kicking a dog or something. And then you get really upset, right? Angry, and ill will and negativity can come up towards that person. I'm just saying. So then you see, like, when the attention to that is broken, then that sensual desire was left behind. It's something else. So again, this is seeing that contact happening, especially the mind contact, because it is easy to see our other contacts, but the mind contact as well. Yeah, how the mind jumps from one to the other, understanding our monkey mind, why the monkey is jumping. Yeah, and as they are jumping, how it is changing. So when you understand these things, your relationship to your mind and mind states are going to change. You're not going to worry so much about the negative states, and you're not going to hold on to the positive states either. And this is so helpful, so very, very helpful. So, and also you can see, okay, how can I look at these things in a way that my mind doesn't go into the hindrance, whether it is sensual lust, or whether it is ill will or negativity, or restlessness and worry or doubt, or whatever it is. You understand, there's always a choice. Yeah, there's always wise ways of looking at things. Yeah. So when you do what you call ayoniso manasikara, that is unwise attention, you attend in a very unwise way, then the hindrances come up. But you can look at the same thing, but in a wise way, in a way that the wisdom comes up, then wholesome mind states would come up. Just take, for example, the person that you saw, like, as you're driving, somebody kicking a dog, let's say. So if you focus on that person and how terrible that is, and the poor dog, either you have sadness coming up towards the poor dog and lots of negativity and ill will towards the person who's giving harm. But if you also look at the person, what's going to happen to this person? Yeah, we know that whatever actions, intentional actions done by body and speech and mind have karmic consequences. Yeah, you have to face the consequences of these things in this life or later lives. So when you understand that poor fellow, not understanding, the future problems that's going to come as a result of this harm and cruelty that they're doing, you can bring up compassion for the person. They are conditioned maybe by their whatever, friends, or they don't have enough wisdom at the moment. Yeah, some people are not as wise in the world. It's surprising how many people are not so wise, in fact. They just follow or don't think about things and just do. Yet, intentional actions have consequences. So whenever you see somebody doing something unskillful, unwholesome, hurtful, and harming to another person, then you also look at what may happen to that person as a consequence. Compassion can come up in your heart. It is possible. So you have a choice in how you look at things. So this is how you understand, the arising of these mind states are also the way you give attention. Passing away of these mind states is also from when your attention moves to something else, or your attention change its direction. Yeah, so another emotion, another mind state comes up. And how do you make sure in the future that that doesn't happen if it is a hindrances coming up? Establishing right view about these things. You learn, okay, this is not a smart way to look at things. Yeah, when I think about things in this way, when I look at things in this way, negative mind states come about. What might happen tomorrow? Will I get sick? Will I get fired by work, at my work? Or whether this happens or that happens. How we think about future. But you also know future is always so different to what you think it's going to be. Future is uncertain. It is not here yet. Yeah, so you can think, what if it doesn't happen like that? What if I don't get sick? What if I don't get fired? Yeah, it's another way of looking at things as well. So it's really, really helpful to see how we create these mind states, how they are born, how they pass away, and slowly how we can change our habits, habitual ways of looking at things, habitual ways of perceiving things, changing slowly our perceptions, changing slowly the views we have, and establishing ourselves more and more into right way of looking at things, wise ways of looking at things. And I can go on for days talking about things, right? There's so many, but that's not necessarily very helpful. Hearing this, you can do your own reflection, your own understanding, and that is when this becomes so very powerful. Catching yourself throughout the day and identifying how your mind works and how various mind states are born. So one aspect of dhammanupassana is all about the hindrances, and this is most relevant to us anytime, yeah, any day and time, as long as we are not yet enlightened. These are very relevant to our lives. But of course, the other part of the dhammanupassana is mainly about the cultivation of the enlightenment factors. There are 7 of them called bojjhangas. So again, this is in meditation. That's why these are really profound states. You see the bojjhangas, or the really profound, the enlightenment factors starting to manifest in your mind. The first one being mindfulness. Second one, investigation of states. Third one, energy. Fourth one, rapture. Fifth one, tranquility. Sixth one is stillness, and seventh one is equanimity. So again, I'm not going to go very deep into this because these are very deep mind states. And in fact, the bojjhangas, these enlightenment factors, fall between the samma sati and samma samadhi. This is how the mind actually, and beyond. So it sort of takes you as the mind becomes more powerful, as the hindrances go down, then the mindfulness starts to wake up. And these are the investigations of understanding. This dhammanupassana itself is that investigation. And as you see how the mind works, the energy starts to come up, because the unwholesome states are subside because you know how to direct your mind and direct it in the way of the meditation. And as the mind gets absorbed into deep meditative states, the energy comes up. Piti, the rapture comes up, the body becomes tranquil, and mind enters into samadhi, and then to equanimity. And you are aware and you understand, again, even with these enlightenment factors also, how they come about, how they pass away, and how can you make them to come up. In this occasion, you want to develop them, right? You want to cultivate them. So how do I need to practice? So this is why at every meditation, at the very end, we do that reflection. Yeah, we look back and see, how did it go? How did my mind work during that time? You know, when it worked, you know, I had a good sit. What things did I do this time? What was my mind and body, and how was my day, everything that went before? And how did I conduct myself? How did I guide myself? Did it work or not? So this is how, by understanding this, you can also guide yourself into deep meditation. So again, a long time goes, because these are deep subjects and much can be said, but I'm giving a very light version of this, because this has still not addressed the question that somebody asked. They really want to be able to practice a lot more during the day-to-day life. But here at the very end, I did mention something that they can use, like, understanding constantly or as much as possible every wakeful moment. If you can do this, this is great, or as many wakeful moments as possible to get in touch with your mind and understand what kind of state it's at and how did that state come about and how does it go away. And if it is a good state, how to cultivate it. If it is a negative state, how to do it differently so that it doesn't come about. There's a whole heap of things you can do outside as well, but it's very little, because outside our mind is not still enough, not powerful enough to understand things deeply. Nevertheless, you can still understand certain amount and you can still cultivate your mind to a certain degree, and this is necessary. But this is actually the practice of sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension. This is actually this comes up in the sixth factor, that is right effort. Right effort is what we need to do in day-to-day life. And this is where we can use this practice much more to guard our mind, prepare our mind for it to be ready to do mindfulness, to do Satipatthana practice. So I suppose this has to continue again for another week, where I might talk a little bit more about Sati Sampajanya, which is the mindfulness and clear comprehension, and sense restraint, and how these things are helping us to go into Satipatthana practice as a formal practice. So next talk probably is what is the most helpful in your practical application of the Buddha's teachings, or practical application of the Noble Eightfold Path aspects in your day-to-day life. So I will stop here. I've taken the whole hour for the Dhamma talk, yet I'm happy to open up for some questions, comments.
Thank you, Ayya, for the talk. Just a question. Remember how you mentioned that, sometimes we get into like a peaceful state, but with weak mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, what is like something we can do to try to, increase our mindfulness in this
Very good question.
situation?
Very good question. Very, very good question. Very relevant question. So one of the reasons understanding why we get into that state repeatedly is important, first of all. And the reason why we get into that state is when we actually practice in a way of rejecting things. Like when the body is tired, when the mind is yucky, what we want to do, why sometimes we meditate, is to become peaceful, right? So sometimes what we do is we reject and kind of shut down those things. And when you do that and you still sit, then suddenly your access to your body and mind sort of drops and you go into that state. The reason why I'm saying that is, instead of doing that, you take another path. This is what I've been encouraging during the guided meditation, and that is to become aware of the yuckiness, if it is like that with your body and mind, the difficulties and pains, and instead bring up a mind state of accepting things. A whole different feel to how you sit, even at a time when it is difficult. So when you have the attitude of accepting the current state of your body and mind, how bad or difficult it is, then you're there. That is why also I mentioned, try to bring up some affection and look at your mind and body as if it is your best friend who you have a lot of affection and acceptance for. And when it is like that, the mind doesn't drop into that very cool, low mind state. It helps to keep it alive, keeps it here. instead of rejecting, because we want to run away. That's why we get into that state which is cool and peaceful, but mindful doesn't come up. But once you are accepting, then you are alert with that yuckiness or difficulty or with pain or discomfort or unpleasant feeling. But after a while, it settles down. As we know, feelings don't last forever, right? After a while, if you have the courage to face it and be with it and accept it, have affection for it, allowing it to be, it starts to change slowly. You don't expect and you don't give a time limit. It may not happen every time, but you are with it. So you don't have that danger of falling into low mind state. That's one step, one important step that we need to do. That change that you do in your meditation. The next thing is to also prepare beforehand if you can. So the other way is that if you have the time, then do few preparatory steps, because often your mind goes into there because you're tired. So have some rest, have a bit of a nap, have a cup of tea, go for a walk, do a bit of walking meditation, something like that to bring up that energy in the mind in a good way. So you can do that kind of practice beforehand. That's why many people, if they want to have a good sit, they do walking meditation. So that again brings up that alertness, and with that, if you sit, again, it becomes better. And the next one is actually you can do Anusati meditation. This is also recommended by the Buddha. So you can do reflections. There are many reflections of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and Chaga, your good generosity, your virtue, all of those things. So Brahma Vihara practice, that is Metta, Karuna, Mudita type of meditations that are a little bit more active with the mind, engaging kind of things and wholesome states and beautiful things. So becoming skilled in preparing your mind, bringing up that Pamoja. Usually this happens when we don't follow the proper sequence, because the Buddha says when you sit to meditate, it is important that you have gladness in the mind. When the mind is glad, the rest is a passive process. We don't have to do anything. But if we sit down without a mind which is not having gladness, then it will go to that cool place. So that is a very important thing, to become skilled in how to bring up gladness in the mind. That's why I mentioned about that uju, or that straight mind. And that straight mind is a mind that has gladness. So becoming skilled. And this goes to how you live your life, what happens before you sit. So this is also important. So before meditation, it is important how you have prepared yourself. So this is why I tell people, busy people, when they are coming from work and coming from all kinds of things, and eventually they want to sit for meditation, then you start as you leave work. So if you can walk to home, during that walk, you can start becoming aware of your movements. And if you can't walk to work, then after you arrive in your car, maybe go for a walk around the block. Or before meditation, do something like that. Go for a swim if you can. If you can't do that, at least you can become aware when you're having your shower. Hot water shower. You can become aware of the sensations in the body. So you can slowly bring your mind back into here. So you learn little ways of grounding yourself and preparing already. And if you're having your dinner, instead of talking and getting into arguments or getting all excited talking to everybody, if you are wanting to meditate after that, that's nothing wrong with doing that with your family. You need to do that. But if you're going to meditate that evening, then you can eat your dinner very quietly, paying attention, to all the flavors, all the things. And then again, you're still becoming slowly with just your normal activities. You're preparing your mind to here and now. And then your mind is a bit more relaxed, has a bit more joy, gladness, and then you can avoid getting into that still state. And this is important. Yeah, so it is important to recognize that we all fall into this regardless. But and it at times it's okay. It's a very good rest as well, and that's no problem. The problem is if it is the only way you meditate for the rest of your life, you will not be on the path to awakening. That's the important thing. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question.